Imagine I gave you $50,000 today. Nothing tricky, nothing expected in return. You have got $50,000 sitting in the bank. You would probably think this will change everything. But here's the strange part. Research suggests that within just 3 to 5 years, many people who suddenly receive a large amount of money end up surprisingly close to where they started financially. And it's not necessarily because they wasted it. History has seen this pattern again and again. With lottery winners, people who receive inherited wealth, and even people who suddenly start earning much more. Their income goes up, they become rich, and then somehow they slowly end up back around the same financial level. But why does this happen? The hard truth is, your brain wants your behavior to match the history you have about yourself, even if that story or identity is quietly keeping you broke. In the next part of the video, we'll understand the science behind it. And after that, I will show you a simple 3-step process for breaking that horrible pattern, which is something much more practical and based on how your brain actually works. Now first let's look at the science behind how our identity is keeping us broke. The science. Okay, this is where things get really interesting. Because most money advice skips over the part that matters most. They say, change your mindset and money will follow. But behind the scenes, 3 psychological forces are quietly shaping your financial life. Let's start with the mechanism 1. Mechanism 1, self-verification theory. Psychologist William Swan discovered that people don't just want to feel good about themselves. They want to feel consistent with who they believe they are, even if those beliefs are negative. If you have always thought, I'm bad with money, your brain will often lead you to make choices that prove that idea right. Not because you want to stay broke, but because staying the same feels safer than becoming a completely different person. Your brain feels more comfortable with what's familiar. Mechanism 2, the financial thermostat effect. Picture your finances like a thermostat. It determines the amount of money you naturally feel comfortable earning and having. If you get a big raise and suddenly you are living above your normal level, and then you start spending more, taking bigger risks, which is generally not a calculated risk, and buying things you normally wouldn't, it's like your brain is trying to pull you back into your old relationship with money. The truth is, your bank balance can change overnight, but your financial identity doesn't change in the same way, and that gap plays a key role in keeping you broke. Mechanism 3, cognitive dissonance. Psychologist Leon Festinger showed that when your actions don't match your identity, your brain feels discomfort. That's why it's usually much easier to stay in your old behavior and keep your old beliefs intact. And for this reason, when someone starts to track every expense for 2 weeks, they then suddenly stop. It looks like a discipline problem. But really, their new behavior conflicts with their old identity, and the brain reduces the discomfort by pulling them back to familiar habits. So you will keep trying to change your behavior while your identity quietly pulls you back. So in order to change this identity, you need to know where this disastrous identity came from. Where this identity came from. Psychologists often call this money scripts. They are the beliefs about money you pick up when you are young. Often before you were even 7 years old. You absorbed it just by watching and listening. Maybe you noticed your parent getting tense every time a bill arrived. Maybe you heard phrases like, people like us aren't supposed to get things like that. Or maybe you grew up in a home or culture where money was treated as something scary, embarrassing or meant for other people. You didn't consciously choose this identity. No one tells a child, here's how you'll think about money for the rest of your life. But those early impressions sink in. They become the lens through which you see money as an adult. Here's the important part. You may not have created these beliefs. You can change them. And that's exactly what we are going to do next. The Identity Shift Framework. In order to break your financially broke identity, I'm going to show you the 3 steps of the identity shifting process. Step 1. Notice your evidence bias. For the next 7 days, write down every money decision you make. Paying a bill, choosing not to buy something, ordering food, saving money, everything. And next to each decision, add one of 2 labels. this reinforces my old identity, or this reinforces my new identity. That's it. Don't try to change anything yet. Just observe. Here's why this is so powerful. When you write down your own self-sabotaging behavior, it hits you hard. It doesn't feel like you're constantly making one tiny decision after another. The truth is, one unnecessary purchase doesn't seem important. One I'll start saving next month doesn't seem important. But when you write all those decisions side by side, you start to see the pattern. And once you see a pattern clearly, it's very hard to pretend it isn't there anymore. But here's the catch. Seeing the pattern is only the beginning. Because once you know what needs to change, you need something to replace it with. And this is where most money advice gets it completely wrong. Step 2. Rewrite your identity sentence. Here's one of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to change their financial identity. They start with affirming statements like, I am rich, or I am a millionaire. The problem isn't that positive thinking is useless. The problem is that your brain struggles to accept an identity that feels completely disconnected from your current reality. If you're currently stressed about managing $1,000, telling yourself I'm a millionaire feels like trying to convince yourself of something you know isn't true, and your brain pushes back. So instead, create identity statements that are close enough to believe, but powerful enough to change your behavior. Don't say I am rich. Say I am someone who knows where my money goes regularly. Or I don't feel the need to spend my money the moment it comes into my hands. Notice the difference. You are not focusing on a number. You are focusing on who you are and what you want. And that matters. Because your brain can actually resonate with this new sentence. But only affirming good money statement is not enough to change your new financial identity. Step 3. Create small proof. Your identity doesn't change just because you make one big decision. It changes because you repeatedly give your brain small pieces of evidence through your actions. Think about it. Your brain is constantly asking, what kind of person am I? And the answer usually comes from what you see yourself doing over and over again. So making a giant promise to yourself is useless. Create one small piece of proof. That's why, within the next week, do one specific thing that supports your new identity about your finances. Don't say, from today I'm going to start saving more money. That's too vague. Instead, do something concrete. Start a new savings account within the week. Or start keeping money in your existing savings account if you have one. That gives evidence to your brain. Or see something you aren't planning to buy but suddenly want. Stop it and say, that's not how I handle money anymore. That's also one piece of evidence. That's all you need to start. Because when the old pattern comes back, your brain now knows there's a different way to act. You have proof that says, hold on, I don't behave that way anymore. That's it. You didn't become rich overnight because of this. But you simply created one small piece of real evidence. And that also created your new financial identity. So the real mechanism isn't simply promising yourself you can create a new financial identity. It's evidence. Your identity isn't built by words alone. It's built by the evidence you create through your actions. So start using these 3 steps today and take the first step toward getting out of financial hardship. And don't forget to watch another very helpful video on the script. The identity shifting method nobody is using to get hired.